My name is Dan Dorval, and I'm President and CEO of Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. I am an independent certified financial planner and author of my book, Financial Success for the Rest of Us, Reality Based Financial Planning for Mainstream America.
Hi, my name is Leah Woodley. I'm an associate financial advisor with Dorval and Cherney Financial Advisors. Our conversations discuss what it means to do quality of life planning in all areas of your life. Dan, as you know, we have an upcoming election. And for many people, that incites some worry, fear. Um, I know we've had a couple people just mention the election in passing when it comes to how they're going to invest. So why don't you talk about that? How often do you see that conversation come up? I know you've been a financial planner for much longer than me, so you've gone through many election cycles. So what has that looked like for you?
Well, the first thing I can tell you is there has never been a time where everybody is happy about any election. I mean, ever. It's just never going to happen. So, whether you have a Republican getting elected, you have a Democrat getting elected, there's somebody that's unhappy and there's somebody who thinks that it's going to be a good thing. And so, we'll have people come in, and this has always been the case, and they'll be like, well, if so and so gets elected, the market is going to crash. And I want to be prepared for that. And we have to kind of bring that back to, the idea of financial planning is to control what you can control. And certainly, people give way too much credit to presidents for probably good things or bad things, frankly. In our economy, it's a complicated economy. Government does have an impact, policies have an impact. We are not going to dispute that. But at the same time, we don't always understand exactly what those impacts are going to be. So a lot of people, what they do is they simplistically say, well, if this happens, then this is going to happen. And I look at that and I go, well, you're just making an assumption rather than knowing that that's actually going to be the case. So what we talk about is goals are always going to drive all of our advice, all of our recommendations. What you control is going to drive these things. So it's your resources, your priorities, your motivations, and all of that. Elections happen and there will be consequences in some way, shape, or form, but rarely, if ever, are we going to look ahead at an election, make a prediction, and then invest based off of some assumptions or predictions that we make. So I would encourage our viewers that no matter how much, like you might have watched the recent debate, you might not exactly be inspired or feel confident in our future, no matter how much you feel that way. We just simply don't know what's going to happen. And I will tell you, too, that in my opinion, the Federal Reserve has a lot of power. So interest rates and the direction of interest rates have a lot of power. That is going to happen regardless of
Mhm.
who the president is. And we want to think in terms of, okay, let's just have kind of a level head, think it through from a longer term perspective than just simply what's going to happen in November. And if we control what we can control, you're usually going to have a better outcome.
I think that is so, so important. Just control what you can control and focus on your goals and the plan that you've established to accomplish those goals. I think sometimes things like an election or things like even the wars that are happening can be a distraction and can add to the noise that we already hear on a daily basis. You have certain commentators saying you should do this, you need to do this, prepare for this. And it's like, just keep your eyes on the prize, which is whatever your quality of life goals are.
I think it's also a great point talking about, well, first off, the noise aspect, but then certain commentators. You really have to kind of think through, even from a financial advisor standpoint, if you have a financial advisor that is coming to you and saying, hey, we need to do something because of this election, that is probably not a great idea. And you might want to think in terms of, is this advice really going to be appropriate for me? Even if I agree with it, which of course human
Mhm.
nature is, if I agree with it, I tend to believe that it's, good advice, good recommendations. But if somebody's coming to you and kind of using an election to ratchet up maybe that anxiety or that fear, and then it's tied to a recommendation to maybe sell something.
Mhm.
And we'll see that, of course, on social media a lot. You might have a TikTok video, or you might have something on Instagram or LinkedIn or whatever it is, and they're like pushing that button of ratcheting up fear or anxiety in order for them to then provide you with some sort of solution. And that solution is almost always the sale of some sort of product. And that is not a planning and advice focused discussion. That's really just taking that noise, taking that
Mhm.
natural human nature of anxiety that we might feel, and then playing upon it in order to manipulate you into a decision.
Absolutely. I think there are some, for instance, the student loan issue and student loan forgiveness that could potentially be overturned with, depending on who's in administration. Um, I think even with that, though, still just stay on the path that you're on and just be be aware of what could happen. If you are anticipating forgiveness in the future, just be prepared, if that could potentially be overturned, but I don't think it's a cause for overwhelm or anxiety or anything like that. What are your thoughts about that?
I think there's actually another one that's you're going to hear more and more about, and that is the tax bills that were enacted
Oh,
under
yeah.
Trump's last administration. Those are set to expire in 2025.
Yes.
And you're going to start to hear a whole lot of people talking about, okay, well, if these expire, then what should you be doing now? And they'll talk about Roth conversions, or they'll
Mhm.
talk about accelerating income so that you pay taxes now. And again, a lot of that is like, tax law is complicated, and
Yeah.
your situation might be different than mine. And you always want to put it in the context of your resources, your goals, your priorities, rather than trying to anticipate. I mean, it would be very easy for Congress to just continue most of those tax policies, and they might
Yeah.
roll back one piece, but not another. And we have no idea how that's going to play out. So I really, really don't like the idea of modifying an estate plan
Mhm.
based on the potential for tax changes down the road. Like, you do an estate plan change, that's a big deal for most people. You don't want to lock yourself into something where down the road it doesn't even happen.
Mhm.
So I think we're going to hear a lot of chatter about
Yeah.
taxes. You're certainly, the student loan thing is going to be a big deal. But, government program wise, if you're in a 10-year program for loan forgiveness, it is highly unlikely that you're in maybe year 8 and all of a sudden, no, we're going to take that away. I mean,
Right.
you're more than likely going to be grandfathered in. So
Mhm.
it's probably not going to be some, big overarching, hey, this isn't going to work at all. So
Mhm.
you're right, kind of keeping that in perspective is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I know sometimes in meetings you'll say, let's not get into all the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs, because you really can go down a rabbit hole with what ifs. And like you said, you don't want to make critical decisions based off of a what if. Just keep your eyes on your quality of life and the goals you are trying to accomplish. So,
And we do see that a lot. Again, it's
mhm,
human nature to kind of work their way into hypotheticals.
mhm,
And we will see people who are naturally thinking about the worst case scenario, and maybe they think
mhm.
about the worst case scenario all the time, so
Yeah.
all of a sudden you hear about an election being about our democracy, and our democracy might end, and you hear these things and you naturally go, one of the big ones I'll refer to, and this goes back a long time, is you'll hear people say, well, I read that the dollar is going to collapse. Like the
Mm-hmm.
dollar's not going to be worth anything anymore. I've read that I should be buying gold because we're going to have
Mm-hmm.
rampant inflation or we're going to have whatever. And I could go back in time and just cite all sorts of examples. And in almost all cases, those examples, like the worst case that we could imagine,
Mm-hmm.
never happened.
Right.
And, with the value of experience, it's so easy for us. Again, I talk about this a lot in this whole quality of life perspective, is that our greatest value of it as advisors is to actually step outside your world as our client and give you an objective perspective of where you are, what actions you can take to work your way on that path to improving your quality of life. And again, with an election, it's the same type of thing. I mean, I might have one meeting where they are very pro, Democrat. I might have another meeting, they're very pro Republican. They might have completely different perspectives based on what they believe. And yet we can come in and give them that objective perspective of where they are, kind of bring them back to focusing on the things they can control. And then that's a very valuable, thing that we do.
Absolutely. We're not emotionally connected to their situation. So it is great that we can provide that objective perspective. So, absolutely. Well, Dan, I hope this helps someone who may be concerned about the election. I hope this, alleviates some stress. And I thank you for having this conversation with me. I would like to ask you to like this video if it was valuable for you, share it with someone you may know, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time.
Thanks, Leah.